Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood of Your Legacy Legal Care, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood, and our very special guest today is Natalie Maxwell Shipp. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Kim. How are you?
And so I'm awake, sometimes they seem to start a little earlier, but it's really important today though, because we're going to talk about before and after, couples guide to preparing for loss. And you've basically worked for IMG Financial Group, right? So you're helping clients manage finances from the time they start with you until the time they're gone, right?
Yep,
And so,
I help my clients with financial planning, retirement planning, making sure they're set up for that next phase of life, helping them with investments management, and I also do insurance as well.
Perfect. But when you work with couples, what are the most important conversations that you should have before a loss, especially the ones people tend to avoid?
Yeah, I would say number one is end of life planning. You know, when your spouse dies, that is the last thing you want to think about, it's something you have to do in the next few days after their passing. So if you can get that organized beforehand, just talking about what do you want? Do you want cremation, burial? Do you want a religious service or not? Where's the memorial going to be? Who do you want to invite? Do you want your employees, coworkers, or just family? What funeral home do you want this at? There's so many things to really iron out beforehand that I would just do that now and not wait. Because I have an example where my husband's father died unexpectedly, tragically, and they had to make a million decisions in the next few days, and it was awful. So I personally had we just got our funeral planning done. I got my mom's done. I even wrote my obituary. I'm ready to go. So
And I hadn't gotten that far, but I've seriously thought. I mean, I have my plot already. My grandparents took care of that when I
okay,
was,
great.
always wanted to make sure that I picked out my headstone, so I got the really one I wanted versus what the kids were going to get.
Yep, that's
So
awesome. Yeah, I picked out my urn. It's a beautiful white marble. My husband's is black marble. So we're ready to go, and it just feels good that he doesn't have to worry about anything upon my passing. So.
I think what's important when we talk to clients about that is that, the price is only going up.
True.
Cremation, used to be $895. It's now almost $2,000.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, um, they don't talk about it. And two, when you're grieving, you have a tendency to spend more money unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Sure.
cost has a way of going up. I did that when I took care of my grandfather's funeral. I was devastated. I was a wreck. I was a mess. And I know I found stuff in the top of my closet, like cards, this box of stuff. And I'm thinking, why did I buy that?
Oh,
And so yeah, so I can appreciate that. I tell clients do it when you're not grieving because you're more
yes.
rational, and can save
Yes, more
costs.
level-headed, absolutely. And then on top of that, I would say just having a good understanding of what your financial picture looks like.
Yeah.
Many spouses sometimes don't know what each other has. Some people split their finances. One spouse handles everything. The other spouse doesn't handle anything financially related.
Yeah.
So it's good to communicate. Do you have a life insurance policy? What company is it with? What financial institutions do you work with? What type of accounts do you have? A Roth IRA, 401k, a brokerage? Where's the bank accounts at? So knowing the institutions and what it is important. If you don't know the account numbers, that's okay. You can call the company, report the death of your spouse. They'll ask for the social security number, and they'll be able to look up everything. So, but knowing the basics, basically know your balance sheet. Know your family's balance sheet is important.
Yeah. Hopefully, it always surprises me when we have clients because, when they do trust planning with us, we put together their asset detail reports.
Right.
Where is everything? So they have to dig it out. They have to do a little
Yes.
homework, so let's talk about legal and financial documents. So what kind of things do you recommend that couples should have in place? And what problems do you see when those documents are missing or outdated?
Yes, I have some good examples. So first and foremost, a will even if it's a basic will, doesn't have to be complicated. I always recommend going to an estate attorney like yourself, because there's a lot of nuances and details that LegalZoom may not be able to cover. But if LegalZoom's the way to go, then do it. It's better than nothing. So a will, power of attorneys, especially a medical power of attorney and a durable or called financial power of attorney. I use those with my clients because some of my clients are elderly, they have dementia, and so we have the financial POA so we can work with these old children to help transact on their behalf. So POAs are very important, but once you have that cognitive decline, you might not be able to do a POA and it might be too late. So those are important. Health directives. So the family knows that if you're in a coma, they know exactly what you want, what life-saving measures, the extent of care that you need. So those things, and as you know, estate attorneys usually put in a package. It's a will, POAs, the HIPAA authorization, directives. It comes in one package and it's all done. So I recommend getting all those completed for sure.
Well, that's good. I appreciate you reminding people they need to come see us.
Absolutely, yes. That's always on my top of the list, because people can save and have a lot of wealth, but if they don't get their estate planning in order, they can lose a lot of wealth in the process to their legacy. So
many couples assume they already know what the other one wishes, So what do you see are the common gaps or misunderstandings when a loss actually happens?
Let's see, the common gaps or misunderstandings you see when a loss actually happens. Well, when a loss happens, people think that it's a seamless process, but there is a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of conversations and phone calls to be made with the Social Security Administration, all the financial institutions that you have bank accounts, financial accounts. Each institution requires different things. They all will require a death certificate, but some want an original copy, some want it mailed or faxed. The paperwork can be very extensive and they ask for a lot of requirements, driver's license, passports. I've seen crazy things some companies ask for, especially if you have accounts with internationally. I have clients that had private equity funds in Israel. So that was a whole other ballgame trying to get that in motion and get the accounts transferred. So that's why it's good to have a list of all the accounts and where they are. And so you can start tackling each institutions, and just being very organized about it all is important, and tracking what is the status, what's missing, what's pending, what's the holdup. So that's a big misunderstanding, is that it's a seamless process. I'm the beneficiary, it transfers to my name. No, it's not that easy. Yes, it will happen, but it could take months, sometimes years. Because it can be complex depending on the type of asset it is.
And so I know a lot of people think it happens really fast. And so I think what's more surprising is that people don't realize that when the funeral home notifies Social Security, everything attached to their Social Security number is immediately notified. And so they, so a lot of times if they're the only ones on the bank accounts get frozen right away.
Right.
So there's a lot of things,
Absolutely.
so you may not be able to spend the money out of the bank accounts for 2 to 3 weeks till you get the death certificate. So being
Absolutely.
knowing those kind of things and what to do to prepare for that makes a world of difference. And so,
And I would also add that back to your other question, is making sure that the beneficiary designations are on everything.
yes,
Like bank accounts, put a payable on death, add a beneficiary. For your brokerage accounts, put a transfer on death, TOD. I had a client in California. The husband didn't have a will, had a pretty large brokerage account, no beneficiary. And so she had to go through 2 years of probate to be able to access the funds. And it was awful. And because he didn't have a will, we had to figure out what was separate property, what was community property, because 50% will go to the son if it's separate. I mean, it really was a very complex probate.
yes, California has one of the worst. So,
Oh, I know that.
So walk us through the first 72 hours after death. What practical steps should the surviving spouse or partner take, and what can wait?
Yeah, I mean, so that's about 3 days, right? So your main focus is really the end of life planning. It's working with the funeral home, getting that organized and set up, and contacting family and friends. And if you haven't pre-planned, you might have to figure out where's the location tables and chairs and catering and flowers. I mean, it's a lot. And getting the death certificate, getting that going as soon as possible. I would say at least 10 copies is what you should request. But the funeral planning is really the focus in the first 3 days. What can wait? I mean, I guess it's everything else because you're grieving at this point, right? But if cash flow is a big problem, then that can't wait. So if your spouse died and they had a pension or Social Security, well, you're about to lose one Social Security paycheck. Depending on how the pension was set up, you may be losing that as well. Some pensions are joint where it will continue with your life. So just figuring out cash flow. What do I need in the next 3 months to get by? Do I have enough? And if I do, then you can start calling, these institutions and start doing the rollovers. And that takes time. But if you need cash flow, you need to get on it as soon as possible because it takes time to roll over this money into your name and then to be able to access it.
I think that's what surprises a lot of people, that it's not instantaneous, so
Right.
it
Yes.
does take a lot of paperwork to get things done. So
Yes, it really does. And estate administration is just, as an executor, I really have a fond heart for executors because it's a very difficult role to be in.
yeah, I've been there, done that. And so,
Mhm.
for sure myself, so I know. And so grief and paperwork collide usually at the worst possible time. So how can couples organize information ahead of time so the surviving partners isn't overloaded?
Yeah, so I ran across this website called Knockbox, so NOK for next of kin. So Knockbox, it's a family that created this because they went through something similar that you did. They lost a parent. They had no idea what the parent had, the accounts, what people they work with. They were combing through their house to find the will and life insurance policies. It was an awful experience. And I've been through that myself with my husband's father who passed. And so the knock box is great because it's just a box, it's a file cabinet, and they have all the paperwork and files ready to go and separated. So there's a section for bank accounts, investment accounts, life insurance policies, credit cards, end of life planning, estate planning. So everything is already set up for you, and every single tab has a piece of paper that you fill out, the account number, the institution. It guides you through the whole thing. You don't really have to think about it. You just have to download statements, print it off, and file it. So if you finish the knockbox, that really is the key for your executor, your spouse, to be able to unlock your whole estate and be able to start working through the process pretty quickly. So it's set it and forget it. And it's really not that costly. There's different options. You can do a fireproof box, which is the most expensive. I think it's $175. Or you can do just the files and you create your own box. So there's a lot of options for people.
Yeah, we find that helping clients go do all that stuff and makes a world of difference in how they handle things, afterwards. So
Yes,
for
absolutely.
someone,
And that's a service I offer my clients is I can do the knockbox for you if that's something that you'd like.
cool. And so for someone listening who hasn't prepared at all, and what's the simplest, most realistic starting point they can tackle this week?
I'd say go to knockbox.com and buy one. But if you don't do that, I would say create a balance sheet. Take a piece of paper and a pen and just start with assets. Write down all the bank accounts, the institution, the investment accounts, the institution, life insurance policies, and vehicles, properties. So think about all the assets you own that have value. And even like jewelry, or if you have a gun collection, a watch collection, something of value, write it all down. So that's your assets, and then liabilities. So your mortgage, student loans, car loans, credit cards. Just having a list of all the companies is so important because that way the executor can start calling each company, reporting the death, sending the death certificate, filling out the paperwork. It's a whole process, but at least have a balance sheet in place and update it, every few years if things change. That's would be a huge for the executor. It's better than nothing.
I find that a lot of clients are surprised when we put their asset detail report together to figure out how much they have.
Yes.
They're
Yeah,
like, wow,
you'd be
I have a lot
surprised.
more than
I
I
grew up
thought.
Right. I come across a lot of clients that had no idea they had an old 401k from 20 years ago at a company they worked at for 2 years. So it's kind of an Easter egg hunt a little bit to figure out what you have, but worth it. You'd be surprised. I have clients that found $50,000 they didn't know they had. So you just
I'd like
never
to do
know.
that.
You'll find it.
And so, all right, Natalie, if somebody's looking for financial management, how do they find you?
Yeah, so you can go to my website at www.natalieship.com, and in there we'll show what my estate transition services are. So if you're an executor and you need help through this whole process, that's something that I can help with. My phone number is also 832-369-9437, and my email is Natalie, Natalie, .ship, SHIPP, at imgfinancialgroup.com.
Perfect. And so, well, Natalie, I appreciate you being on the show today and sharing all this good information for our listeners. And we look forward to having you on again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate the invitation.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.